What's going on, guys? So today's video is going to be interesting, and it's kind of based off of some videos that I've seen floating around YouTube where folks kind of pull down the trim above their air conditioner and they kind of create a baffle that allows air to go directly into the vents for the duct air conditioning system. Now, there's all sorts of different ways to do this, and there's even a product that you simply slide into place and it does it for you, but that product's relatively expensive. So what I'm gonna do today is attempt to make my own, but in a much faster, and I guess probably the best way of saying this is in a way that focuses on function over form. It's probably not going to be as pretty as some of the other ones you've seen, but it's going to likely be a little quicker, a little less expensive, and hopefully just as functional. So hang tight. I think you're going to enjoy this video. I'll be right back. All right, so in this box, I have 7 of these foam panels. And these foam panels are 11 by 17 by 1 inch thick. So 11 inches wide, 17 inches long, and 1 inch thick. And it's cooler style foam. So it's got pretty good density to it, and it's really designed for crafting and things like that. I also have some ducting tape with me as well. This is aluminum tape, and this is going to be, of course, to seal everything up. I have a tape measure. I was going to bring a yardstick out, but instead I brought this little piece of wood. It's a spare piece of wood from some cabinetry that I never fully assembled, and it's just going to give me the ability to kind of cut a straight line. And I have a bunch of Razer knives, as well as a slightly more expensive Amazon basic brand Razer knife. This thing is super cool. I get these on Amazon, and they are really, really fantastic. But that being said, this is going to be the equipment I use to attempt to create kind of a foam style guide, baffle, basically a way of focusing the air that's going into the ductwork a little bit more efficiently and better. So the goal here is that I can create it out of these 7 pieces, and if I run out here, I actually have another box of 7 pieces, and this box, I believe, was $19.95, something like that on Amazon, and it was Prime as well, and they got it to me in about 3 days. So the goal here is that I'll be able to knock it all out with what I have in this box and maybe one other box. The only one I may not do is the one in the bedroom, because the process of doing this actually makes it so you can't use that kind of direct air to where you open it up and the air just blasts out. So whenever you do this, you essentially fully duct the system at this point, and you can't use it on direct fire to where it just blows straight out of the actual unit. So I'll likely do it on this unit and this unit, and then just leave the one in the bedroom the way it is. I might clean up the ducting if I can. But I have this unit running right now, and this one's off, so we're going to start with this one. First thing we need to do, take the cover off and then pull the inner panel down so we have access to the hole essentially where the AC is coming through. So let's go ahead and knock that out. So the first thing I need to do is drop the filter, which is really simple. Simply pull this out, and then this piece right here usually comes out really easy from one of the sides. There we go. Let's drop this filter out. There we go. Now I just simply have to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. So let's go ahead and get those out. Okay, so that panel's off, but I really only needed to remove 4 screws for that panel. Then you got 4 more in here, and it's kind of a cross shape. So I got one out right here. I'm going to take this one, and this one out, and it's going to release this piece, which will then gain me access to the divider here. One is going to be for my return air, which is right here, and the other one's going to be for where the blowing air comes out, which is right there. Okay, now that I have that removed, the divider is lined up perfectly. So it's right down the center, which is what you want. Sometimes this is leaning over because it's just kind of wedged in here. The tape right here is fine. It covers up some of these wires right here. That's not a big deal. But overall, the tape is actually set up pretty well in here. I remember, like on our old Chaparral, it was pretty sloppy. One thing you have to keep in mind whenever it comes to this type of tape, it reacts very differently to different types of climates. Now, I know it's inside of an air conditioning box, but the air that blows out of here is typically very dry, cold air because air conditioners naturally act as dehumidifiers. But if you have a unit which is likely built in Indiana, let's say it's built during the winter time or early part of the year, and it's 40 degrees, 30, 20 degrees outside and snowing, whenever they apply this ducting tape and then all of a sudden it gets towed down to Florida or Texas or some other state where it's really, really hot, the adhesion right here could actually suffer from that, and you could actually run into a problem where it doesn't stick. So oftentimes whenever you pop down your vents up here, and you see that the tape isn't sticking, it's not because it didn't stick originally when they put it on. It's because there's a huge shift in humidity, climate, elevation, and all of that, which can actually have an effect on how well the tape sticks. So it can come undone, especially if your unit's been sitting in an RV dealership lot for months and months and months. That tape might have worked its way off just from the change in all of those environmental conditions. So just keep that in mind. You do want to open these occasionally and kind of press everything into place and make sure that it's all stuck in well. Right now I got a lot of cold air coming through here, even though this unit is off, simply because that unit right there is ducting air throughout the entire system. And I got a good amount of cold air coming in here, which is really nice. So this is going to keep me nice and cool while I do this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to make it so I have easy access to this, because this goes to one side of the vents and then this goes to the other side of the vents, and that's the way air kind of moves throughout the ducting system. So what I want to do is I want to make it a lot easier for this air to get into this vent and for it to get into this vent. And I'm going to do it by making kind of a wedge that'll go up here and right here. And first I'm going to drop this thing out. That was easy. Now, one of the reasons why I'm using things like one end of my cutting board, or at least the part that covers up the sink and then this piece of spare wood, is because I'm trying to use stuff that you may already have in your RV, and you don't have to go to the store and buy a bunch of things. Typically, you're going to have a tape measure. You'll probably have something like this you can use as a straight edge, and you'll probably have some type of scrap that you can use just to kind of either make a clean cut with, or you can cut on top of so you don't scratch up your countertop. So the first cut I'm going to make is going to be 6 inches. So it's going to be 6 inches by 11 inches, and of course an inch thick. So we're going to go ahead and cut that with the Razer knife. And I know it's probably best to use something like a hot knife that's designed to cut through styrofoam really well, but if you buy these really cheap disposable little Razer knives, they work really well and they have a really sharp edge. Now the hardest part about using them is making a perfectly straight cut, because these blades bend kind of easy, but at the same time they're super cheap. You can get them just about anywhere and they work really well. So as long as they're sharp, you know, if you get new ones, they work real well. If you have an old one, it probably won't work well if you've tried to cut 100 other things with it. But I actually bought a big old box of these things. It was like 50 or 60 of these, and I bought them for, I don't know, shoot, I have a ton of sleeves of these, and I think I paid about $12 for all of them. So this comes in real handy, and you can use them for all sorts of things. But I got my 6-inch cut. It's essentially going to be the piece that's going to be right there at an angle going down to this. Now again, the goal of this is not to make it look super fancy and super pretty. The goal is to make it functional. So that's going to be what we try to do today. So let me get this up in place and see how it looks. Okay, so this is actually going to go right here, and it's going to kind of be at an angle, roughly a 45-degree angle, so I can get it wedged right here, and then I'll have another piece that kind of creates a triangle. So first thing I want to do is give myself an edge right here on this little bolt so I know where to cut. And then the other piece is going to be right to here, right there. I'll just bust that out a little bit with my finger. Now you do want to clean off all the little foam particles that come out, because you don't want that getting mixed in or caught in your AC system. So I know I need to make a cut here, and then I need to notch out an area right here for the screws that go through. And these are the long bolts that compress the air conditioning up against the top of your RV. Okay, so here's the piece I made. It's going to go right here, and I'm simply going to notch it on the inside and right here so it sits kind of flush against the top of this. Okay, so I have a bit of a rough cut right here. This part's going to go on the top. I'm going to clean that up right there a little bit, make it match, and then this part will go on the bottom. There we go. Slide my ladder back a little bit. And it should fit pretty well right here. There we go. Need to notch out the top right here just a little bit more, just so it fits a little bit snugger. And then I'll be able to use some of my ducting tape to feed the air into the actual hole right here, or the ducting system. So that'll work well. Just want to notch out a little bit more of the back there. You can see where it's pressing up against it. Okay, there we go. Got it looking good. Got that part notched out a little bit more. Should fit relatively well right here. And then we're gonna secure it in place in a bit of a crude way for now. All right, now I can get some more of the tape and I can kind of attach it around all these edges so the air kind of feeds in. Otherwise, what ends up happening is the air just kind of hits here, it spins around inside of this little divided area, and whatever can be forced into here is forced in, while the rest of it kind of creates a vortex or a spinning flow. See, I'm just going to tape up these areas right here and kind of enclose everything, because there's really no need to put a bunch of foam everywhere whenever the entire goal is just to take the rapid moving air coming out and get it into your vents. Okay, so I have one side done. You can see I have it taped up pretty well. I have the other piece cut, so you can see what it looks like. I have that little section notched out, and this piece is gonna go on this side over here. So actually I got that backwards, so it's gonna go on this side, so I gotta recut that little notch right there. I had this kind of mirrored in reverse whenever I cut it, but I can just cut it on this side and I'll be fine. And yeah, we'll be in pretty good shape as soon as I fix this little piece right here, and then we'll tape it up to this side over here. Okay, so I have this side up now. You can see it's at an angle, and I have this side up now. I just need to make a piece that'll go right here, but I'm gonna do something a little bit different, because I also am gonna make a V shape that goes in here, but the bottom of the V is gonna be open, because whenever I do that, it's actually gonna allow more air to be pulled in through the return air versus just having that divider right here. So it should work out pretty well, but let's see how it works. I'm gonna make the V shape in here first, and then we'll be able to make the end cap right here, which will kind of seal everything off from the return air. Okay, so the next piece I cut is gonna be 9.5 inches long by 9 inches, and then it's gonna have this notch right here, which is gonna coincide with that little bracket right there. So before I make my angle cut, I'm gonna go ahead and put it up there just to see how it fits around that. There we go. It actually fits pretty good. So I'm just gonna make my angle cut so I can go ahead and press it flat against this side. I might have to notch it out a little bit right here for that bolt, but then once it's flat against there, I'll be able to work on the other side right here, which is gonna come down, and it's gonna create a V shape inside of here. And then the center of it, I'm gonna leave open so there's additional return air coming back into it. I'm gonna tell you, if you have a project like this, having a sharp razor knife really makes things easier and less stressful. So I got my cuts made now. It's gonna sit up there like that, and I'm gonna go ahead and start taping it in place and covering everything up. Okay, so I put a little piece of tape across the bottom right there, and it's actually gonna lean up a little bit more because it needs to be parallel to the one that's already up there. I'm gonna make the side over here, attach them, get everything taped up, and then I'm gonna squeeze the whole assembly in there whenever I have the assembly complete. Okay, so I kind of have my shape here. Got the notch cut out on both sides. I'm gonna tape it up really well, and then I'm gonna test fit it and see if I can get it to squeeze up in there and create that V shape that I'm looking for. So check that out. So you may be able to see it. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So now the air comes straight from the top, goes in one side, and then goes in the other side. And it's just V'd off. So it's essentially what some of the other folks who have done something like this are doing. The difference is I'm not putting that large panel across the bottom, which is still causing the air to kind of come down. This funnels it directly in. This is, I guess, more similar to that specific part you can buy that kind of slides in place for about 150 bucks, I think. I forgot exactly how much it is. But the reason why I did it this way is that entire cavity right there is gonna partially act as return air. So I'm not limiting my return air just to this little area right here. It's gonna be able to pull it in through any of these vents on the actual outside portion of the air conditioning unit. So this is gonna be really cool, because you can see how much turbulence would build up inside of there if it's just flat and the air has to kind of hit and circulate around. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close off that portion right there. I'm gonna use some extra pieces that I have and just close all that part off right there. Okay, so I know a lot of people just save this just in case they want to reuse it for something, but I'm actually gonna cut this because it's already cut to fit. It's got the foam around the outside of it. I already kind of slid it up into place, and I use the razor knife to kind of scar the area that I'm going to be cutting out. And then once I do that, I'll be able to tape it all around, and I think that'll pretty much be it. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and cut this piece out and stuff it back in place, tape it up, and see what it looks like. Now, I really didn't expect this stuff to be hard to cut, but it cut incredibly easy. I thought I'd have to kind of saw at it like I do with the styrofoam, but once it got started, I just simply drug it along, and it cut straight through this duct board without any problem at all. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stuff this piece back in, get it all taped up and sealed, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So this is sliding up like this into that. Okay, so this is what it looks like before I put the tape on. You can see it's wedged up really nicely. I cut it right across the edge here. This can slide up a little bit more, but there's some foam at the top that kind of creates a seal, and it's pressing down a little bit. No more air blowing into this space right here, which is really cool. And then I'm gonna seal all this up right here, and all of my air conditioning is gonna stay above this. Now, I did take this tape and I sealed all of the top of this. I basically covered it all just as an extra layer of kind of radiant thermal barrier, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and tape this piece up right here and seal it all up and see what it looks like. Okay, so we are all finished, and there is a lot of air coming out of this vent now. I probably should have gotten a wind gauge and let you see the difference, but this vent is blowing a tremendous amount of air that it wasn't blowing before, which is kind of crazy because what essentially was happening was this AC was running, it's the only one running, it's feeding all the ducting, right? And then it gets to here and it just blows the air in from typically the ducting that would be going that way, it's blowing in this way from each side into this area. So it was just kind of free to blow into this space. Now that I have that there, it really is feeding a lot more pressure to these vents that it wasn't before, which is really crazy. So, and that's just with one AC that's currently running. It's crazy to think how restrictive some of these systems are. And part of it is probably to ease installation, to make things quicker. But at the same time, this entire project from start to finish, including the recording I did, took me 50 minutes. You heard that right, 50 minutes to complete this entire project for this one AC. Now, I'm gonna do this one, but I'm not gonna do the one in the bedroom because again, the one in the bedroom, just like these, has these little vents that I can open up and kind of blow air straight in. So if we wanna freeze ourselves out in the bedroom, I wanna be able to do that still without changing the flow. And I think just by the improvement this has made to this system and the airflow coming through, that this is gonna be just as good. It's gonna be awesome, and I'll be able to feed a lot more air through the ducting, because right now, the air that's blowing in from this vent is extraordinarily stronger than it was before. But yeah, that's what it looks like. Let me get up here real quick so you can see a little bit more of what I did. Again, the goal here wasn't the beauty aspect of it. It wasn't cosmetics. It was making it functional, because I didn't want this to be a project that you get into thinking you have to do it perfectly. You can do a lot of this, and not by cutting corners, but just by focusing on the end result versus trying to make this thing look cosmetically appealing, because nobody's gonna look up here, right? Nobody's really gonna see any of this. And by opening up this cavity right here and creating this big channel, it now allows more air to be drawn in. Similar to what the folks over at Van Lee do with the Beacon. They create a much larger return air hole, so it kind of squeezes the air out of your actual vents. And that's essentially what I was trying to accomplish here. But I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm gonna go ahead and tackle that one over there. I'm gonna kick this unit on, turn that one off, just so I can kind of get an idea of how the air is blowing, if there's any air leaks, anything I need to seal up before I go ahead and close this thing up completely. Okay, so I have this system running now, and boy are they quiet. These are just very, very quiet ACs. I can feel the air being pulled in right here, and got a lot of air being blown out of these vents right now. That is awesome. Wow, that is really, really cool. Literally. But yeah, all I did was direct the air to go directly into the ducting versus kind of getting lost in this area, recirculating, probably some of it leaking off this way. Very, very simple project. Overall cost to do one unit was about 25 bucks, and that's considering the fact I have 2 pieces of foam left. So I have enough to probably do part of the next one. And the only challenge is because they're 17 inches long by 11 inches, I can't use a piece of foam beyond a 9-inch cut, if that makes sense, because this was 9.5, this was 9. So whenever I do this one piece right here, or this one piece, I have to use another piece of styrofoam. If they were 17 by 17, then I would have been able to use a single piece of styrofoam and get a lot more accomplished. But for 20 bucks for a 7-pack of the stuff, this works really well. I'm very, very pleased with this modification. I don't feel any air leaks at all. It's not the most cosmetically appealing look, I get it, but it works exceptionally well. I'm very, very happy. And I can feel the air being drawn in, so I can imagine if I just left that divider right here, it's only pulling air in from right here. And now, whenever I put the vent cover back on, it pulls it in from here as well as right here. And check out something super cool that I just realized. I don't need to use this part anymore. All this was used for was creating the divide between the return air and the blowing side. That's it. That's all that was doing. If I put this back up now, it would make it slightly more restrictive because the air would only be able to come in through these two holes right here, or at least the 14-inch framed out portion, which is a much smaller hole on each side. But because of my much larger return air now, I don't need to do that anymore. I can simply put this directly on the ceiling portion. Very cool. I'm gonna get the filter and the covers back on and we'll wrap this up. There we are, all done. And I didn't even need to reinstall this piece. Very, very cool. A lot of air blowing out of the vents right now. It's very impressive whenever you do an install like this and you simply can kind of marvel in what you were able to accomplish by about an hour's worth of labor. So this one should only take about half the time because I'm not going to record this one. I'm just going to go and drop it down and tackle this one. This one, again, took about 50 minutes up until the point that I started putting everything back together on this side. So all in all, about an hour. That's it. And again, tons of air coming through the vents now. That is absolutely amazing. So very happy with this. Again, total, all parts, everything I needed to knock this out, about 25 bucks per AC unit. So just keep that in mind. Everything said and done, you can probably do your whole RV, which in most cases is just going to be 2 AC units, for about 50 bucks. And there's always some folks who don't think I actually complete the job, that I do the one I'm doing the video on and then I don't finish. But we are all finished here. I'm just going to wrap this thing back up with its cover because I don't need that other kind of divider anymore. Okay, so we are completely done. Those little dark spots are actually the shadow from the light. But yeah, this side took me a little under 40 minutes. So 50 minutes, 40 minutes, closer to 50 whenever you put the cover and everything back on, closer to an hour on this side. But we are completely done. I'm not gonna do the bedroom for the same reasons I talked about earlier. Very, very cool project, very easy to do. And as long as you get the foam and everything you need from here, you're in good shape. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.